Okay. Okay, so before continuing, let's solve something concerning the midterm assignment. Okay, I don't know if you read the questions on the Telegram group. And now I have I've asked myself some questions. So I want to decide with you how to deal with the midterm assignment. Initially, my idea was to give you 5 points in the exam, and that specific part of the exam that concerned the front end. Let's try to. My idea was to allocate less points for the ones that had submitted the midterm assignment. Anyway, yesterday I reflected on that, and what I don't like, or what I wouldn't like, is that, for instance, if someone sent the assignment, then they won't pay attention to the front end in the exam, no? Because somehow you said, I already did the assignment, so I already got the points for the assignment, for the front end that will be allocated in the exam. So maybe I don't devote that many attention to the front end. So what came to my mind, and is the proposal that I want to make you, and then maybe we can vote on the Telegram group, is that instead of giving 5 points in the exam and evaluating the exam over 25 points, then I evaluate the exam over 30 points, normal, and then this assignment counts as a bonus over those 30 points. So that you present the exam over 30 points, you can get up to 30 points, and the assignment will not, or won't be anymore 5 points, but just 3 points, but are extra points. Okay, so that if, for instance, in the exam you get 25, but you did the assignment and the assignment was perfect, then the final grade will be 28. Okay, or that, that's the idea. Or if you did the final exam, you got 28, but you did the assignment and you got 2 points from the assignment, then it will get to 30. Okay? So I think in that way is clearer for everyone, also because there is the valid question, like, what if I get, instead of 5 points, 3 points? Can I have the chance to have my exam until 27 points, or it will get to 25? So to get rid of such questions and such doubts, I think that using the assignment as a bonus for the exam could be a better option. I don't know if you agree, or if you like more the previous scheme. Okay. So what I will do is of course, I'm recording this, so the people that is not today in class can see what we have defined, or what I'm proposing, and then I will write on the Telegram group the proposal, and we'll try to set up like a voting or a polling in Telegram, so that you vote there, and then if we have most of the people prefer to try to do the assignment as a bonus, then I will update the document, so I won't be giving any more 5 points, but 3, but are bonus points. Okay? Questions? Clear? Okay. Nice. So let's get back to the slides. So, okay, we already see the part on the front end. Let's see how it behaves on Flask. Okay, as we said, the form submission basically uses two methods. One of them is post and the other one is put. And they are sent using an HTTP request. In Flask, it stores the data that comes from within those requests using this request module or this request instance. And when we ask for the request that form, it basically behaves as a dictionary where the keys are input field names. Okay? So do you remember that in the HTML we had for each input an attribute that was the name? So what's the utility of that attribute that we defined on the HTML on the front end? Is that here we can point or get the information by specifying the name. So for instance, in here, when I say request that form from this dictionary, because we know that request that form is a dictionary and I want to get the key with name, what does this mean or what does this imply? That on the HTML, for sure, I have an input field that has the name. Or that on the front end, in the HTML, I have an input field that has the name email. Okay? So here, if I show you these two code snippets, the one on the front end, that is this one that we have seen so far, and if I show you the one on the back end, that is this one in Flask, that we are trying to understand right now. Well, what can you infer from these two snippets? Pay attention especially to the action attribute, and let's see if the action attributes make sense in this specific example. So do you remember that here I told you that the action attribute defines to which path the form data will be sent to? Because here we are doing a post, so that information will be sent to a specific path. And here I define this action attribute as subscribe. What did I do here? In the app.root, so up to here we know how Flask works. So here I define the root that is subscribe, that is consistent with the action that I have defined in the form. Okay? What is new here, or what is different here in Flask? That now I'm specifying that this root is not a get root, that is the default one, that it is not a root to retrieve something, but it is a root to collect information, to collect what the user will be sending me to this specific root. So it basically works that the user specifies, I will be sending you this information to this specific root that is subscribe, and since I'm submitting such information, I'm doing it through a method post. And on the back end, I define an endpoint that is named in the same way as the action, and I say this is an endpoint that receives or that deals with a post method, and then within that specific function, he can deal with the information that the user has submitted. Okay? Why do I use here name and email? Because in the front end, I have defined the name as name, and the name of the first field as name, and the name of the second field as email. So these, the ones that I have defined through this attribute, are then the ones that will be used in the dictionary that will be submitted to the backend. Okay? Well, I don't know, questions? Is this clear? If this is clear, basically we're done. So yeah, from here, the most maybe important part or the new part is that now the routes in Flask, other than having the specified URL as we have been doing so far, we can also specify the method. So this is a post and a post endpoint. In here in Flask, we also have the option to get the request, the form, and then to transform it into a dictionary so that we can deal with all of the data as a dictionary. Then we can maybe check an example of how this works. And then we have the server-side validation. Well, let's try to replicate this on the backend and see how it works. So first of all, I will convert this into a Flask project. So I create the templates folder for the index.html, and here I of course create our app.py file. Okay. Okay, now we see that it works, but now it works as a Flask application, not just as the HTML anymore. Okay? And here we have our form. So we will create a new route that is the responsible for dealing with data that the user will be submitting when sending the information or when dealing with the form. Okay? So here, what name? Okay. Here, what name should I give to this route? If it's the one that will be handling the information that the user submits? Which one? Not form, but because it's the one that will be dealing with the information that the user submits. is not to display a new page that shows the form, because the one that has been created to display the form is this one, because when I get to the home page, I can see the index.html, that is the page where I have the form. So this one. Which? New user. Why did you know it was new user? Because here we have defined this action, new user, so we are submitting this form to a route or to the path that is called new user. So since here in the action we have new user, we know that here the app, the route that will handle the information that I send, that I submit, is new user. Then what else do I have to specify here? That it won't be a get route, but it will be a post route, meaning a route that is expected to receive information from the front end and deal with the information that is coming. Okay? Okay, this one doesn't return anything yet. But I just printed this message here to show you that now when I submit the form, I'm being redirected, or I've been pointing out to this specific route that is new user. We still don't know what to return. We will get to that in a second. But now we know that when I submit something, I'm entering into this function that is handle form. Okay? So what did we specify here? Here we had the username, for instance. Be careful with this, because request by default, this module request, that is the one that we use to deal with the data that is coming from the front end, is not imported, so we have to import it here. So So if you analyze this, basically we're getting from the request that is arriving, from the form, in the request that is arriving, we are getting the value associated with the field that has the name username. Why this works? Because here on the front end, on the HTML, we have set this field here. We have set this field here name as username. Okay. Why did I name this variable like this? Well, because I wanted, but I could. They don't have to match. This is an arbitrary name. The important thing is that here the username has to match with the name that I have defined in the form. No? So that's the utility of the form here, to indicate how that specific value will be referenced in the backend. And what I'm doing in this case, I'm just getting the name and I'm returning the name that is coming from the front end. So if I write here Juan, then and I send the form, then it will be printed what I've written there. In here, I mean, in this example, it seems pretty trivial because I'm running everything within my computer. But let's take into account that something like this in the real life is happening in two different devices, in two different components, physical components. The form that is being submitted by the user is happening on its computer, and the form being and the information being received and processed is happening on a web server, a remote web server. So here, what we are doing is basically, right now, we are able to send data from the user back to the server, okay? This is the conceptual challenge that we are solving here. So to make this more real, let's suppose that we have users. Okay, so what did I do here? So here on the left, that is the Flask application. I still have my landing page that will render the form.html, so that when I'm in the landing page, I will be rendering or showing the form, right? Then I have this root that is called new user. That is the root that will be handling the information coming from that form. How do I know that this root is the one that will be handling the information? Because it matches the root path with the one that I have specified in the form action. And also because it has as the defined method post, okay? So this one here, for instance, which method does this one have? Get, that is the default one. So this is like a default method get. And here I'm specifying that the method is not get, but it is expecting a request coming from the client that has or that consists of a post method. Okay, so that's the way of reading that. In here we are expecting a request with the method get, and here we are expecting a request with the method post. And then we have the handle form function associated with this root. What I'm doing here, what is this code for? For getting from the form that is within the request the field whose name is email and the field whose name is username. Then with such fields, I'm creating like a new instance, a new object, and I'm appending this new user to an empty list that I've created before. Okay. And after that, this is new. What do you think this one is doing? I'm redirecting, because if I don't do this redirect, what will happen? I mean, I get all the information, I process all the information, but what do I retrieve the user? Anyway, I need to retrieve him something, no? So I already got his information, but I have to retrieve his something so that he is redirected or that he has a visual output from this method, from this function. So I'm redirecting him to the URL whose function name is users page. That is this one that I have defined here. Okay. And in this function, that is a get function, it will render the template users, and I'm passing as parameter the users list. Is clear all of this reasoning behind this implementation? And then what do you think I will be doing in this user.html? Well, showing the users that have been registered in the application, so that I can show you that the user submitted a form, our backend got the data, created a new user, and appended to the list, to the original list of users that I had before. Okay, so I created this very simple page that is called users, that has like an H1 named register users, and below it is supposed to show a list with the users that have been registered in the application. Up so far, I don't have any registered users, so it doesn't show anything. But then if I get back to the home and I insert and I click send, nothing happens. Why? Because here is not P user, but P users. Okay, and here, of course, is not written in this way, but it is written in the syntax is not this one, but this one. And user. Okay. No, name. Okay. Do you know why it doesn't work when I try with name? Do you see what is the error in here? I mean, when I try with name, it doesn't work because it says register users known, so as name didn't exist. Yeah. It is missing there. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, it's because of this. Because before I named the name of that specific input was username. Then I changed the name, and then I was still expecting to point out to username and find something there. But of course, since I changed the form here, and it is not, and it is called username anymore, then when I try to get here something such as username, it doesn't exist. Okay, so this is very common. So pay attention every time you try to deal with this, implementing this kind of functionality. Pay attention that all of the input names match with what you are expecting to get on the backend. So here is not username, but name. And now I have the registered user environment. Then if I get back and create a new one, I have the registered user Luigi, okay? Once again, this seems trivial, seems super simple, and it is simple, it's not difficult, it's not complex. You must pay attention to matching everything on the front end and on the back end. But what I want to insist is that we should not lose the sight on the fact that we are dealing with two different components, no? The form lives here on the front end, and the Flask and the logic with the information that the user submits lives here, lives in a completely different component. So we are running both of them on our computer, but let's not forget that conceptually it is two remote parts that we were able to synchronize, that we were able to make them speak. Questions so far? Does it work for you? Okay, and do you remember that I told you how validation works? So that we have to implement the validation on the front end, but also on the back end. So for instance, if on the console I write something such as curl and then the URL, since this is a get method, I will be getting the HTML that it is within that specific path, in that specific route. It is the same. If I do something like, let me see if it works. Then I'm getting the HTML of all of the information from the Politecnico. Okay, so through a terminal command, it is possible to ask an HTTP request. Basically, I'm doing an HTTP request not from the browser, but from a terminal command. What's the potential problem with this? That the same way that I can do a GET request, I can do also a POST request, no? So in this case, not for getting something from the terminal, but for submitting something from the terminal. Let me check if I'm able to replicate post request. So the syntax should be this one. Okay, I will find out how to make this specific request from the terminal, but trust me that it is possible to do a request through a terminal command. So if, for instance, in this case, I wanted to show like the real example of a case in which, for instance, in name, I can write numbers, no? And if the validation is not implemented on the back end, what will happen? It will get the numbers and it will save the numbers as if they were the name that it was expecting. So if the user did the request by using the graphical interface that I designed, we're fine because we know that we already implemented the validations on the HTML, making sure that the information is required, that it's consistent, that if we were asking for an email, then it has the email format, that if we were asking for the URL, it has a URL format. But if someone else tries to invoke the post method from here, from a terminal, it is not possible, and we don't implement the validation on the backend, then everything could be taken as valid information and be saved in the database or be saved in the backend. Okay, so that's why, apart from doing the validation on the front end, we must also implement the validation on the backend. How does this validation look? Basically, we are trying to replicate here what we have already done on the front end. So, for instance, in this case, I'm checking if in the request that I'm receiving, there is a field name and there is a field email. In case that any of these fields is not present in the request that I'm receiving, then I should print a log message and stop. If, for instance, this character is not present in the email field that I'm receiving, then I should be warning somehow the user that the data is inconsistent. And if these validations were correct, then I can say that the user was subscribed successfully, and of course subscribes the user. Okay. So once again, this is, it's simple, it's not difficult, but it's important to always remember to do the validation both on the front end, but also in the back end, okay? And the validation in the backend is basically a replication of what you have validated already on the front end. Okay, we have already seen this, that we have the redirect function to redirect the users to a different URL once the data that has been received has been processed. So redirect changed the URL. And so the typical way of dealing with what is retrieved after a form is submitted is by using this redirect function, using this syntax that, well, it's pretty easy. That we have already seen that. Okay, and the last thing that we are missing today is dealing with the file uploads, no? Because a file is different from all of the other fields. Okay, before the file upload, let me see if this one works. I just wanted to show you what I have told you before, that in the case, for instance, with the select, with the select item, here what we get on the other side is what I have specified as the value here. So for instance, here I specified as value M. So the information that I got on the backend when I try to ask for the data that comes associated with this name is M. Okay, so I won't be getting this textual information, but I'm getting what I have specified as value, and the same will happen for the no, in this case it's for the select. Okay. And let me Okay, here there is something that changes when dealing with files. So as you can see here, when I was dealing with the other data that was coming from the form, the way of accessing that information was through request form get. And here I'm doing request files. So it means that the files are submitted like in a different or apart, and I'm looking for that specific file or for that specific file into a different subset or into a different location that in this case is files. So the first thing that changes when dealing with files is that the way of accessing them is different. It's not a request form files anymore, but it is through these files syntax. And then there is something else that we must change here in the HTML. And it is that we have to set or specify a value for this attribute for the not the encryptation, but how the file will be managed or loaded in this specific form. And here we select this option. Let's see if it works. So here I can choose an image, but just JPEG images because I have defined that way in the form. So for instance, I select this one. And then I submit the form. There are several requests, understand, profile image. Excuse me. Okay. Here I was missing the ID for that specific field. That is a field that was this ID. So in here it wasn't able to pick the image that I was sending. So here I got the image from the files. And what do you think I'm doing here in this line? Saving the image, no? I'm saving the image that I received from the user. Where do you think this image is going to be saved? Here, if I open the Flask project, you can see that the image has been uploaded here, okay? That is the image that the user has selected. So this makes sense if we remember once again that this is happening in two different computers in two different remote locations. In one remote location, there was the user that selected the file and hit submit. And on the other remote location, there is the server that got those requests and saved that image within its own persistence or within its own file system. So once again, what we are talking here is always referred to this. We got the image here, we saved the image here, and now it is in the file system. Of course, in our computer, it seems it just shifts the image from one folder to another because everything is running locally. But in reality, conceptually, this is happening in two remote locations, and we are getting data from a remote user, and we are using that data, handling that data, and saving it into our web server. Is that clear? Okay. Do you have any questions? Are we okay? Okay. So the last. Okay, no, we're fine. We're done. I will be sending the message on Telegram, maybe with the poll, so that everyone can vote, and then based on that, on what happens until tomorrow, maybe. I make a decision, and eventually I will change the text, and we will keep the assignment as a bonus for the final exam. Okay? Okay, we're done. Thank you.